It's been a long time since I've made a review video, but I'm so glad to be talking about such an amazing book today. I hope you're having a magnificent day, and let's get started with this video. So as you know, I'm going to be talking about Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Project Hail Mary is a hard science fiction novel that I just can't wait to reread. I'm already thinking about rereading it next year. It's really good. So Project Hail Mary is about a man who wakes up in some sort of spacecraft in space, and he doesn't know why he's there. And that's pretty much all I can tell you without ruining the fun of it. There is quite a bit more information on the flap, the description of the book, but I'm not even going to tell you that in case you haven't read it. I recommend not reading it. Gives a little too much away, in my opinion, but that's just what I think. All I'll tell you, other than that it's a man in space trying to figure out why he's there, all I'll tell you is that it has something to do with space, and it has something to do with saving Earth from a microorganism called astrophage. That's all I'll tell you. I don't think that counts as a spoiler, so yeah, that's what it's about. So, as I just mentioned, this book does have a sort of end-of-the-world plot, which is kind of common for hard science fiction, and kind of science fiction in general, but especially hard science fiction, centers a lot around the end of the world. Some movies, it's about a meteor coming to hit the world. Sometimes it's about zombies, or sometimes it's about a virus of some kind. Or maybe it's artificial intelligence taking over the world. It's a very common trope in science fiction, and really in fiction in general. It's like the big thing that affects everyone, right? If the world ends, it affects everyone, essentially. In Project Hail Mary, this end of the world plot is, I think, somewhat realistic, and the stakes are realistically high. In this plot, not everyone's gonna die, right? It doesn't mean total annihilation. It's more like 50% of the population might end up dying due to starvation and freezing and lack of food and water and stuff like that. So it's not a complete end of the world plot, but it is gonna cause mass death, right? And I think by doing it this way, by making the threat starvation especially, it's more realistic and a little bit more scary, because we do see starvation in our real world, right? There is many cases of starvation in our history, many cases of people freezing to death, I guess, but especially starvation is the big thing. Everything centers around food, right? Civilization centers around food. It's a big thing. So having that as the end of the world plot, I think, is smart and realistic, and it feels like it could actually happen in a way. So on a brighter note, the characters are very lovable. All of the characters, from the main character to the side character to the side characters that are only in one scene, all the characters are very lovable, and they all interact well with each other, and help each character kind of fits in like a puzzle piece, supporting the other characters. That's kind of how it should be, right? And it's like a pyramid supporting the main character at the top. Now, in regards to the main character, Dr. Grace, he is a very fun character to experience the story through, because he is smart but relatable at the same time. He isn't, I don't want to give too much away, but he isn't the typical smart scientist trying to save the world, I guess. He's not that typical thing that's done that we see quite a bit in science fiction. You know, the guy that's not afraid of anything, the guy that's not he's not afraid to lose his own life, he's afraid to sacrifice himself. You know, that's the usual character in this situation, and Dr. Grace isn't so much that. Like, maybe he is a little bit, I'm not going to tell you too much, like I said, I really have to be vague about this book, but the point is that he's a relatable character. Like, I can see myself in his shoes. It's not some... there's no disconnect between me and Dr. Grace. Possibly the best aspect of this novel is the friendship. It's not what I expected going into it, but that is by far the best part of this novel is the friendship and the relationships between the characters. I think it, while the plot is about the end of the world and stuff like that, that's not the focal point of this novel. The focal point is the friendships, and I really appreciate the way it's done, the ingenuity behind these friendships, the freshness of it. So I really like the way that was done, and it's like I said, I can't say it enough, it's by far the best part about this novel, in my opinion at least. I shouldn't say by far, but I really like that about this novel. If you like good friendships, definitely give this one a read. Before I continue, I want to ask you to subscribe and like. Why would you do that? Well, so you can get more book-related content and reviews, of course. And also, I just kind of want to watch my channel grow. It's fun to do, and I'd appreciate it if you could help me do that. Also, feel free to leave a comment about anything related to this video or not related to this video. You can let me know how your dinner was or whatever. Regardless, leaving a comment helps the algorithm, so I very much appreciate it. And let's get on with the video. What about the science aspect of this novel? I'll say it's very interesting. I feel like Andy Weir is very smart about his knowledge of science and stuff like that, especially related to space and biology too, I will say. So I don't know too much about that stuff myself. I know basic stuff. I know more about marine biology and stuff like that, but I will say it was very interesting, but at the same time it was digestible. It wasn't overwhelming. There were some parts it gets pretty into it with some of the math, but not too much into it. Like, it's not like you have to fully understand what it's saying, but if you want stuff that makes sense with good explanations of why things are the way that they are, I definitely recommend this novel. I don't want to call it soft science fiction, because soft science fiction is like Star Wars, I guess. But I guess I will relate it to Star Wars in the sense where you wonder how a lightsaber works, and it's just like, well, there's a crystal and it works, right? No, this novel tells you how things work, I guess. But not too much. It's just to give you an idea or give you this sense of realism to it without overloading your brain or making you feel like you're reading a textbook. It's very fun. Even for someone who doesn't have any interest in science, I think it's still very fun, and it adds to the thrill of it as well. This book is very thrilling, and without the realism from the science aspect of it, it wouldn't feel as thrilling, because the stakes wouldn't be as high, and you wouldn't understand why these things matter. So I really appreciate that side of this novel. So going into the things that are less realistic about this novel, but are still science-based, the like creativity and the imaginative part of this novel is very fresh and unique. There's a lot of things done in this novel that I've never seen before. I haven't read a ton of science fiction, but science fiction is a very popular genre, and regardless if you've read a lot of science fiction or watched a lot of science fiction, I feel like most people have a pretty good idea of the common tropes in science fiction, right? But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've watched more science fiction and read more science fiction than I think, but still, the point is that I feel like compared to the rest of sci-fi that I've consumed, movies, TV shows, books, and everything, this novel is very fresh. It doesn't feel like it's trying to be something that it's not. It's not trying to compete with other stuff. It's just kind of doing its own thing. And I really, really like that about it. And it just does things in, like, it kind of ties in what I was saying earlier. It does things in more believable ways. If you read it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It just feels like it could happen. It feels more like what would actually happen in this scenario, I guess. So I really like that about this book. I like everything about this book, so I know I keep saying that, but that's a neat little part of it. Not my favorite part of it, but it is still fun, and it makes the whole book tied together better. The creativity in this novel. So I keep bringing up this end of the world plot, right? And it makes it seem like this is kind of a darker novel, but it's not by any means. This is a very uh, light-hearted novel, surprisingly. I thought it was going to be kind of dark and gritty, but it's not. If you've read other Andy Weir books, this wouldn't be a surprise to you. This was my first Andy Weir book, so it was kind of a little bit surprising to me. The character is super humorous and witty and a little sarcastic too, in a fresh way. Like, he doesn't feel like every other character that's witty, sarcastic, and all that, right? He has his own personality, and it kind of goes into what I was saying. He's a fun character to experience the story through, but the humor is a huge element to this novel that makes it digestible, right? I said the science fiction can go pretty deep, but then you add the humor into it and it makes it flow better. And it's like, just as things are getting a little too tense and dark, there's a little humor thrown into it. So it's not, you never feel overwhelmed by certain emotions. You never feel like you're trapped in this book. Maybe you never feel that about any book, but sometimes I've read books where I'm just tired of the deep sad feeling. You know, I want something a little different. And this book is good. It gives you a well balanced feel of those moments. So the humor is awesome. I listened to this as an audiobook, which is what I'll talk about next, but there were several moments, like all throughout this novel, I was just laughing out loud, literally. Like, it had me cracking up, and it was cool. It was funny. So if you like funny books, again, I recommend this book. So now, speaking of the audiobook, let's talk about that. So I consumed this book by listening to an audiobook via Audible. And no, I'm not going to try to get you to buy Audible. I'm just saying that's what I used to listen to it. But anyway, that really enhanced my experience with this book. The person who did the voice acting for this novel did an impeccable job. I really should write these people's names down, because I do listen to audiobooks a lot, and they deserve a lot of credit, because I feel like if the person who narrated it didn't have such skill at doing the voice acting and reading, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much. I probably still would feel the same way if I actually read the book, but I feel like it's worse to have a bad narrator than to just read the book yourself. So the narrator did an outstanding job, and really the whole feel of the book was one of the best I've ever had. Like, the whole experience of the audiobook, the little effects that are added in at some little parts. It's not like the Darth Plagueis audiobook, but it is a very fun audiobook that you really can't get tired of, in my opinion. Like, I was so excited to get in the car every time, because I knew I had this book waiting for me. The last thing I want to talk about is a criticism for this book, but not from me. When people criticize books that I like to try to defend them and give my opinion on it. So the largest criticism I've heard on Project Hail Mary is that it is too similar to what is it, The Martian, right? Which is the other very popular Andy Weir book. It was made into a movie. The main character is played by Matt Damon. Big thing, right? I did watch the movie. I haven't read the book, but I watched the movie, and I have a general idea of what this book is about and what it contains, and I promise you, it is nothing like The Martian. Project Hail Mary is nothing like The Martian, other than that it takes place in space. That's the only similarity between the two, and it's science fiction, right? And I guess the male character is a white dude. That's the only similarity. Other than that, everything is different. Everything about the plot, the tone is different, the writing style is different, the point of views are different, the characters are incredibly different. I've read bits of The Martian, and he talks much differently than Dr. Grace. I forget what his name is in the book. I want to say it's Mark or something, but he does cuss a lot, right? Dr. Grace, that's not his thing. And there's a reason for that. And it's cool to explore that, why this character is the way that he is. But the point, I'm getting sidetracked from the point. The point is that it's not like The Martian. I promise you. That I can see why someone says that. But to me, it feels like someone would only say that if they've read, like, the first... I don't even know. I mean, it doesn't feel like it doesn't take long for it to deviate from The Martian in its similarity. But I guess it's similar because they're both trying to survive, too. But I wish I could tell you why it's not like The Martian, but if I did, it would spoil it. So let's just say, let's say that's enough for you to get the idea. Alright, so that's the end of my review. I hope you decide to pick up this book if it sounds good to you. Thank you for watching my video. I really hope you enjoyed. Before you read this book, remember to subscribe and like, and then go read it. I hope you have a day so good it's out of this world.